The microbiome has been a remarkably complicated topic for decades, and really what brought it to light was the fact that we've developed culture-independent methods of finally being able to identify what composes the bacteria that lives in our colon, which for decades was quite a task in itself. And so over the last couple of decades, what's really come to light is that these bugs are not just bystanders, they actually play a significant role in a number of physiologic states and to that aspect pathophysiologic states as well. What's really come to light is its impact on energy metabolism, and that's certainly been done by key studies over the last decade in highly respected journals, showing that with obesity and even insulin resistance, type 2 diabetes, there's a remarkable shift in the composition of the microbiome as we know it. And so these shifts are important because it lends a hand to energy extraction from the caloric intake. So really, some people are at a disadvantage, so to speak. Maybe their microbiomes are composed in a manner that really allows them to extract everything, every ounce of energy from what they eat, which really underlies a very difficult part of how to break the cycle of obesity and diabetes. We're learning more and more that diet, while can be effective, is very difficult to maintain over prolonged periods of time to induce weight loss or improvements in diabetes. And to that point is where we've turned to bariatric surgery. Over the past several decades, bariatric surgery, both the Roux-en-Y gastric bypass and the sleeve gastrectomy, have been remarkably effective in treating not only acutely but longitudinally obesity and its related disorders, so diseases, so to speak. And to that point is where we answered the question, well, what happens with the microbiome? We've learned all this about the microbiome. Surgery we know is truly very effective. Where do the two intersect? Perhaps one of the mechanisms that underlies the surgical induced improvement may be associated shifts in the microbiome. Even then, you know, the part of surgery that we all enjoy is do and ask questions later, and we're kind of asking the questions later. In our study, what we sought to do was to identify the impact of different aspects that might play a role in shifting the microbiome in that perioperative period involved with surgery. So in that period of surgery, there are several confounders, and we sought to identify the two biggest ones that we thought would play a role in the shifts, specifically antibiotics and diet. Now, the routine surgical procedure involves a dose of antibiotic, dietary changes, lots of things. We know that. Even then, acute characterization of shifts in the 1 week period after surgery haven't been published on before. So not only do we seek to characterize these changes, we sought to identify the potential role that these antibiotics have, and then as well as diet. And what we found was that when we changed our antibiotic, well, first off, even before that, regarding diet, at least acutely after bariatric surgery, the diet, which is severely restricted, really didn't seem to play that much of a role in inducing any kinds of shifts. Perhaps longitudinally it very well may, but acutely it did not. What we did find quite impactful was that single dose of antibiotic that's given really has an impact on what you see a week later as far as gut microbial composition. It was rather startling, and even if we changed it to an antibiotic, specifically IV vancomycin, which is known to have very poor gut penetration, we found a stark contrast. Patients with the routine VSG had a significant similar shift in the microbiome, and if you switched to the IV vancomycin, not so much. It wasn't quite clear. There was a bit of a shift, but not to the stark degree that the routine group experienced. Now the question is, why and how does it influence outcomes afterwards? And those are going to be significantly challenging questions to answer, but that's where we're moving in the future. We've identified several key changes that occur in a mouse model despite re-exposure of a high-fat diet, so to speak. And so we're trying to nudge it exactly what you're suggesting. Perhaps we can influence patients after surgery in a post-surgical setting if we identify particular compositions that that may not be similar to what successful or patients who lose a lot of weight have. And so perhaps in that manner, we might actually be able to use antibiotics for advantage. Now, granted, antibiotics are like taking a nuclear warhead and putting it right in the middle of the gut, and so it has a significant impact.
Right.
So it's still very early, but that's why we're trying to perform as rigorous a study analysis of all these things as we can, knowing that how we can use the microbiome still remains a hot yet controversial topic altogether. So.